What is up, everyone? Thank you for tuning in to First Seed Fantasy. I am Kyle. This is my friend Zach.
Yo,
And welcome to week 6. What's up, man?
what's going on, dude? We are trucking along through the season here. I guess it always blows my mind. You wait and wait and wait for football season, and then it's here and it flies. It's amazing how quick these 18 weeks of action go.
It's scary because then the Super Bowl happens, and then you're just like, well, now I want more football. But then it's a long wait.
Yes, it
But
is. Yes, it is.
we're savoring it while we have it, and
We sure are.
it's good, except for these Thursday night football games.
Let's not talk about this. Let's just move on.
I think the only thing making up for it is that we have a Bills Chiefs game this week. But
Agree.
if we didn't have that, I'd be very upset about week
Agreed.
6.
Absolutely
But
agreed. This week can be as mediocre as it wants because we got something to look forward to. So
absolutely, in the middle of the day on Sunday, not even on prime time. But that's just what the schedule makers wanted.
yep.
Sure. But all right, let's get to it. Today we are doing a little bit of boom bust, our kind of variation of start sits,
Mhm.
because we all know sometimes you can't sit somebody that you have, so you just kind of have to lower those expectations, and that's kind of the reasoning for our bus. While booms are guys that we're just expecting a very good week out of.
Mhm.
So I'll kick us off here. My boom of the week is this stud here, Geno Smith. Man, oh man, I zero expectations for him to compete at this level this season. So anything that he's been providing us is a surprise, but it's a welcome surprise because man, he's killing it. And I don't see why that's going to slow down this week against Arizona. I don't see why it's going to slow down next week against the Chargers. I don't think he's going to slow down. I think he's going to continue moving forward for at least these next few weeks to be a top 10 quarterback.
Mhm.
Uh, and if he's available, scoop him up, and you've got Russell Wilson. Absolutely start him over him because that's a train wreck in a different section. But I think Geno runs into this game against a division rival in Arizona and just plays lights out as we've seen these past 3 weeks. Maybe not 30 points, maybe not 35, but if we get, I think I'm seeing at least, this is a Kyle guarantee, at least 25 fantasy points from Geno this week.
Wow.
I think both DK and Lockett they're playing phenomenal accessory pieces for this man. Then you add in the new rookie Kenneth Walker. Give me a good week out of Geno this week, moving forward. I think he's a top 10 quarterback easily.
I love this. I think this is a great pick, and I think your floor is very safe there at 25 points. Especially we saw Jalen Hurts score about 27 points last week. And
Yeah,
granted, he gives a lot on the ground, but where we're not going to see Geno make up on the ground, he's going to make up through the air. And you can see there he was even able to find in 4 of his 5 games he's been able to find the end zone at least twice. So
yeah.
that's a beautiful 12-point floor right there. So I love that. I think this is a great pick.
Thanks, dude.
I guess I'll hop into my bust here. I'm sorry, my boom here. And my boom for the week is I'm going to go to a position where it's a little bit of a desolate wasteland, and that is going to be the tight end position. And my boom is Hayden Hurst. Last week, he kind of surprised people. He managed to put up a very decent game where he saw 7 targets and 6 receptions, and he found the end zone, which I think is the key component here, especially at the tight end position. This year tight end is so poor unless you have really Kelsey or Andrews. You're looking for guys that are going to either get high targets or are going to be able to score. And Hurst is kind of hedging into that direction where he's getting both. You can see there he had the 7 targets. You can see he's also had games of 7 and 8, and he managed to find the end zone. So he's getting into that range where I'm really, really comfortable with him week in and week out at the tight end position. Especially against New Orleans. I think New Orleans gives up a lot in the way of the passing game as we saw last week from the game with Geno Smith. Yeah, that was more so to receivers, but I'm going to call that just because I'm going to call that a scheme thing for the Seahawks. Joe Burrow's finding Hurst is one of his favorite targets, so I think Hurst is a good candidate to be a boom this week and get us somewhere around those 10 to 15 point range.
Yeah, and quite honestly, that's all you kind of seek for a tight end nowadays. If you can get a guy who's going to get you double digits, start him, because
Absolutely.
that's how bad the tight end position is this year. But I like Hurst. I think a limited T. Higgins coming into this week is going to benefit him, where he's going to see those 7 or 8 targets again this week. So great pick, Zach.
Thank you.
Always looking for tight end recommendations.
Definitely.
So moving on to our bus. So my bust of this week is someone, he's playing all right after his great week 1. That's Kareem Hunt. New England doesn't excite me. I think this game could quite honestly be a little bit low scoring. And because of that, I think we've seen Kareem Hunt's only value this year so far has been scoring touchdowns, because he is, for some reason, the goal line guy or the kind of the 10-yard zone guy for Cleveland when they have the best running back in all of football and Nick Chubb. But Hunt's been coming in at the goal line, scoring once in a while. And when he does, he gets good fantasy points. But when he doesn't, which we've seen weeks 2 through 4, he gets 8 or 9 points. And that's fine. But I think this is one of those weeks where we're going to see that 8 or 9 points, and quite honestly, probably a little bit less, just because I think his potential to score this week is lower. And for that, I think this is Nick Chubb's backfield, where in previous years it was a 50-50, and this year it's very, very much one way. And Hunt is somebody I've got very low expectations for this week.
It's interesting that you mentioned that this is Nick Chubb's backfield. It almost feels like it should have been for like the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And it really makes me curious as to why they felt he was such a Hunt, this being, was such a necessary component to keep on this team. Because if you remember, he requested a trade not too long ago, and they shut that down. They said, no, you're staying here. So either put up or shut up, and it's just kind of curious because we've seen they've been heavily reliant on Nick Chubb early in the season. So I love the bust here, though. I think this is a great selection, especially against a tough New England defense.
Yeah.
So I'm going to flip the switch here. We're going to go to wide receiver position for my bus, and I'm looking at Deontay Johnson, wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Deontay, he's a little bit of a curious case this season, we'll call him, because he started off the season strong. You can see with a couple 10, 15-point performances, and then he had a really, really bad week in week 4 against the New York Jets. And last week you can see he saw 13 targets, but only had 5 receptions. I just don't like the way that he is trending as a player. You can see that since Kenny Pickett's come in, George Pickens has picked up in the offense. Pat Freiermuth, prior to getting his concussion last week, was very, very essential to the offense. He's someone that Kenny Pickett tends to look to, and that's a trend, is that rookie quarterbacks typically tend to look towards the tight end position a little more than other positions. Chase Claypool. We don't need to talk about him. He's an infinite bust. But Deontay Johnson, for me, I think is losing some of the faith of Kenny Pickett because we've seen inconsistency with drops. We've seen inconsistency just in his overall level of play. Whereas George Pickens, on the other side, has only been increasing and becoming more and more of a steady piece in this offense. So I don't want to say that I'm fading Deontay Johnson out of this offense. He's still a young receiver. He's going to be an essential part. But for the time being, I think Kenny Pickett's trust lays elsewhere. And that's not with Deontay Johnson, which is why he is going to be my bust for this week.
Bold for a guy who consistently gets double-digit targets, but it's Tampa Bay. So that's going to be a tricky offense. And I think it's going to be a similar situation to last week against Buffalo, where they're just down. And those 13 targets might be inflated because, he had a solid drop. But some of those might have just been Kenny chucking it because he's just like, I don't have time. Here's somebody's there.
Well,
So a bit of an inflation in targets.
and that's another piece that I think is important is I didn't talk at all about Tampa, but Tampa's got an incredible pass rush with Tryon Shoyoka and Shaquille Barrett, and they have some great pass rushers on that line, and Pittsburgh's line is not good. I would say it's probably one of the bottom 10 in the league. So I fully expect Kenny to be running for his life again this week, and some of those dump off targets might be there, but I just personally don't love the outlook for this week. Plus, I think that they're not going to be in as negative of a game script as they were last week against the Bills. They were just clearly outmanned, and I think that they could look to get the Najee Harris, Jalen Samuels thing ironed out this week too. So I'm just not excited about Johnson overall.
Jalen Samuels. You mean Jalen Warren?
Jalen Warren. I just went back like 5 years in my brain, didn't I?
Just a bit.
Wow. How about it?
Wow.
Sorry about that.
That was a beautiful throwback.
Involuntary callback to to a couple of years ago. Wow.
But yeah, I think Deontay, the quality's there. He's not somebody you can fully like fade. You can't drop him. You're not going to get good value for him in a trade because those targets are incredible. But man, this offense is going to be rough for a little bit.
That right there will be my tidbit too. Is he's a buy low candidate. I think he's a perfect buy low candidate.
Absolutely. If you can get him as your wide receiver 3 or flex, go for it. I think he's the perfect player to have in that role because
Definitely.
he's going to give you points, except for like he did week 4.
Yep.
But I think he's a fine flex wide receiver 3 moving forward. He's just going to have some iffy weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Zach, we did it. We laid out the 4 guys that we love and we hate. I'm so proud of us.
Made it. I am too. We talked about 4 players.
Well, everybody, thank you for tuning in. Hit us up. Find our next video. It's going to be best specs, probably coming out tomorrow if you're watching this, or it's already out if you're watching this on game day. But thanks for tuning in. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, comment. Hit us up with any of your fantasy start sit questions.
Mm-hmm.
We are 100% always willing to help. That's kind of why we're doing this. We're here to help your teams and help you win. Claim your first seed in your fantasy leagues.
Absolutely.
Follow us on socials. Everything will be linked in the descriptions. And Zach, it was a pleasure chatting with you.
Always fun, man.
All right. Good luck this week, everybody.
See you guys.